Liverpool fans, don't miss this. Big transfer twists at Anfield as Andy Robertson's future takes a shock turn. Virgil van Dijk breaks his silence and Arne Slot finds a brand new hero. Hit subscribe now for daily Liverpool news, transfer updates, and all the latest from the Slot era. Liverpool transfer news. Andy Robertson replacement picked as double deal nears for Arne Slot. The latest Liverpool transfer news as the club continued to be linked with both incomings and outgoings. There is just a week of the January transfer window remaining, with Liverpool not having too much longer to complete their transfer business. Clubs have until 7 p.m. on Monday, February 2nd to get deals done. On the pitch, it has been another frustrating weekend for Liverpool as they fell to a 3-2 loss against Bournemouth at the Vitality Stadium. A 95th-minute goal from Amin Adil condemned the Reds to the loss. It means that Liverpool have now gone 5 Premier League matches without tasting victory. They're back in action on Wednesday as they take on Carragher in the Champions League before hosting Newcastle in the Premier League next weekend. If there will be any transfer business either in or out of the club before then is still to be seen. The club continued to be linked with both incomings and outgoings. With that in mind, here's a look at some of the latest rumors from the last 24 hours or so. Andy Robertson replacement. Liverpool are preparing to make a move for Fulham fullback Anthony Robinson as a possible replacement for Andy Robertson, according to Team Talk. Robertson did look set to leave Anfield before the end of the window, with talks taking place over a potential move to Tottenham Hotspur. It does, however, seem that any potential exit has been put on hold, due to Liverpool not yet being able to recall Kostas Tsimikas from his loan spell with Roma. However, if the move is reignited, it seems that Liverpool could also be looking for a replacement to come in. Robinson was said to be on the list of fullback targets back in the summer, before the club opted to complete a deal for Milos Kerkez. The report says that the club continue to admire the player ahead of a potential move in the summer transfer window. The USA international is also said to be keen on a move to Anfield. 2 stars wanted. The same report from Team Talk also says that Fulham are showing an interest in 2 Liverpool players, Tsimikas and Harvey Elliott. As previously mentioned, Tsimikas could return to Liverpool from a loan deal for the second half of the season, while there continues to be uncertainty over the long-term future of Elliott. The midfielder is on loan at Aston Villa, but is finding game time hard to come by. He was an unused substitute in this weekend's Premier League game against Newcastle United, despite being back in the squad. It is already said to be conversations between both Liverpool and Fulham over potential summer moves. The Reds could now see what deal could be done involving Robinson.
Liverpool transfer news. Virgil van Dijk addresses Reds star leaving as deal gets approval. Liverpool's shortcomings were laid bare as they crashed to a dramatic 3-2 defeat at Bournemouth. The Reds looked set to register a 5th successive Premier League draw after Virgil van Dijk and Dominic Szoboszlai cancelled out strikes from Evan Nilsson and Alex Jimenez. But with virtually the last kick, Cherries winger Amin Adli forced home a dramatic winner to deal another setback in what has been a deeply underwhelming title defense by Arne Slot's side. Having missed out on Mark Guehi, it is clear Liverpool need to strengthen defensively, ideally before the end of the current transfer window. For now, the Reds look set to sell rather than buy as Andy Robertson closes in on a move to Tottenham. Here's a roundup of the latest Liverpool transfer news. Van Dijk's Robertson plea. Robertson made what could be his final Liverpool appearance by coming off the bench against Bournemouth. The Scot had been in talks over a new Anfield deal before Spurs' surprise approach. Robertson is believed to be torn over staying or moving to secure regular first-team football. Captain Van Dijk has made his feelings clear on the matter after speaking to the left-back. The Dutchman said, "Of course I speak to him. I speak to him every day. He's my vice-captain. Robbo is a very important member of our team, and I want him to stay, but whatever happens, let's see. Do I expect him to be here on Wednesday for the Carragher game in the Champions League? That's not on me, is it? Let's speak about my best memories of him when a move happens."
Reds get transfer advice. Liverpool have been urged to raid Manchester City to strengthen their defense. According to former Anfield defender Stefan Henshaw's, center-back Manuel Akanji, currently on loan at Inter Milan, would be a perfect fit. Akanji, who can also operate at fullback, helped City win the treble in 2023 before falling out of favor under Pep Guardiola and being allowed to join Inter in September. Henshaw's told Hyper, Manuel Akanji would be an interesting option for Liverpool. He has proven his ability in the Premier League with Manchester City, despite a slightly difficult last season due to injury. He is 30, which is not old for a center-back, and he has a good injury record. I've watched him playing for Inter Milan and Swiss national teams since he left City, and he still has the necessary attributes. He possesses everything you want in a center-back: pace, power, intelligence, good reading of the game, and comfort in possession. Crucially, he knows the Premier League, which is a big advantage for a January transfer. When signing a player in the winter window, you need someone who can fit in and perform immediately. Akanji meets those needs. Therefore, if Liverpool cannot secure their first-choice target, Akanji would definitely be an interesting alternative. Akanji looks set to see out the season at Inter, who currently lead Serie A. However, the Swiss star could be up for grabs in the summer. Jamie Carragher is right about ruthless Harvey Elliott move as major decision awaits. Harvey Elliott was named in a Premier League matchday squad for the first time since October this weekend, though Unai Emery was never likely to use him. In a way, this was progress for Harvey Elliott. He was at least on the bench to watch the game as Aston Villa won at Newcastle United, further cementing its top 4 status. The Liverpool loanee had been left out entirely for the last 2 months, and so while Elliott didn't come on at St. James's Park, and in truth was never likely to, that Unai Emery had him there to fill a space on the bench was marginally better than nothing. That is the situation that Elliott finds himself in at the moment, despite the 22-year-old being good enough to start for at least half of the teams in the Premier League. His chances have been limited to almost zero. Elliott's loan has not worked out for anyone so far. The player wanted more regular game time, and he has ended up being used even less than had he stayed at Liverpool, while Aston Villa doesn't want it to become a permanent arrangement. That's the ruthless nature of football, Jamie Carragher said on Sky Sports, ahead of Villa playing Newcastle on Sunday. If the manager doesn't fancy the player, and he doesn't think he can add to what he's got, are the club going to spend whatever it is? I think it's 25, 30 million? He thinks he can do something else with that in the summer. I understand where Unai Emery's coming from as well, but I really feel for the young lad, because I almost feel like he's wasted a season of his career. Elliott has not even made the bench for Aston Villa in the Premier League since mid-October. The last time he played for the Midlands side in the league was in September. Amid interest from MLS, it is understandable that Elliott would be reluctant. It would be a major step down for him in terms of the level at which he would be operating. But at the same time, his hands might be tied. Having already played for 2 teams in the Premier League, Liverpool and Aston Villa, he cannot move somewhere else in Europe in this window. Aside from the US, he could either move to Saudi Arabia or return to Anfield. For that to happen, though, Aston Villa would need to initiate talks, which has so far not happened. It would be a crying shame if Elliott stayed out in the cold at Villa Park for the remainder of the campaign. As Carragher said, what a waste of a year that would be. Given he has done it for the majority of the season to date, there is no reason to doubt Emery's assessment that things won't change is anything but honest. But ultimately, Elliott deserves better. He has been unfortunate in making a choice that has backfired, but his next step could define the rest of his career, and so the pressure is on to ensure it is the right one.
Liverpool spent around $600 million on new players in the summer, but has so far struggled for consistency in the Premier League, with one thing about Arne Slot becoming clear. Dominic Szoboszlai stood, hands on hips, looking up at the sky. Somehow, Liverpool had contrived to drop points in stoppage time again for the 5th time in the Premier League this season, with Bournemouth the latest team to benefit from a long throw. Arne Slot said his players were tired from a midweek trip to Marseille in the Champions League, but that is no excuse, really. Virgil van Dijk started sloppily, even if he redeemed himself to some degree by scoring just before halftime, and Milos Kerkez struggled for 45 minutes before being replaced by Andy Robertson. Error-prone at the back, and with Wataru Endo filling in after Alisson Becker clattered into Joe Gomez, Liverpool was then overly reliant on a misfiring attack. Szoboszlai had done his best, but Mohamed Salah and Florian Wirtz were largely anonymous. Quite fairly, there are questions to be asked about Slot. Most pertinently, is he getting the most out the players that he has at his disposal? That Wirtz was struggling so much and Cody Gakpo has become so predictable suggests not. Hugo Ekitike was taken out of the starting 11 here to have a rest, but he has been a rare bright spark in the forward line over the last few months. Midweek, Liverpool looked magnificent in Marseille, but of course, Roberto De Zerbi's team played in a way that was conducive to the Reds playing well, playing right into their hands. Even so, there should not be such a difference between performances in Europe and domestically. Champions League Liverpool and Premier League Liverpool are simply way too far apart. Slot has to take the blame for failing to get the most out of his roster, for sure. But at the same time, the Liverpool boss can only do so much with the players he has available. Liverpool had 5 players absent against Bournemouth, 3 long-term, 1 short-term, and 1 on compassionate leave. That is not a high enough number for a crisis. Federico Chiesa, the short-term issue, is rarely trusted to start matches anyway, while Giovanni Leone is a teenager. Liverpool has been unfortunate with injuries, but the bottom line is that its depth is nowhere near sufficient. To properly judge Slot, Liverpool needs at least 3 more senior players than it has now, assuming that no one leaves. His squad is lacking the options required to make a fair judgment. In defense, Liverpool is a centre-back light. In midfield, it needs a better player than Wataru Endo to turn to when he isn't filling in elsewhere. And in attack, Slot's team is desperately short of pace and the ability to beat a man. Liverpool was right to sell Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich for a fee that could reach $88 million, £65 million, with the Colombian wanting out and now 29. His contract was running down, and it made sense to cash in. The mistake, though, was not selling the player at a time when someone could be brought in as a replacement. Diaz's ability to dribble and create in the final third is simply not there anymore, with Rio Numaha's game time, given his age, needing to be managed. It is a difficult argument to make for a team that has spent $600 million in one summer on new players, but the reality is that Liverpool needs more investment. It needs more bodies and the ability to rotate. If Liverpool had either kept Diaz or bought someone similar who could come in to replace him in the squad, Gakpo would likely be playing at a higher level, as he was last season, Wirtz would have more options to pass to, and Ekitike wouldn't be as overplayed. Considering Salah could move when the season ends, and if not after this one, then almost certainly the next, Liverpool may need 2 wide forwards when the next transfer window opens. On top of adding more depth in defense and midfield too, it might end up being another busy summer.
What the Echo learned about Andy Robertson's Liverpool future before Tottenham talks cancelled. The Echo assesses a fascinating few days concerning the future of modern-day Liverpool legend Andy Robertson, whose move to Tottenham Hotspur is now off. When Arne Slot made Andy Robertson his vice-captain at Liverpool in the summer, these last few days won't have been how the head coach envisioned the long-serving defender spending the final week of the January transfer window. After Trent Alexander-Arnold had decided to up sticks to Real Madrid, Slot was in the market for a new deputy to club captain Virgil van Dijk, and it was Robertson who fended off strong competition from Mohamed Salah and Alisson Becker to get the nod. Slot's thinking for overlooking Salah was the idea that both Van Dijk and the Egyptian would, more often than not, be in the same team together on the pitch. The same applies to Alisson, whose quiet nature still resonates in the dressing room. When the Brazil international speaks, his teammates listen.
Robertson, thanks to signing of £40 million Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth, was less likely to be featuring as often in the same starting lineups as Van Dijk, and his leadership qualities at international level dovetailed nicely with his standing inside the squad itself as he approached his 9th season with a CV as glittering as anyone else in the 21st century at Anfield. Just a few months later, the vice-captain has been stood at a genuine crossroads. The approach from Tottenham Hotspur last week came as something as a surprise to some at Liverpool, but it is a plan the Londoners were looking to bring forward after initially looking to jostle for position with a litany of other interested parties to take the defender on a free transfer this summer. A fee of around £3 million plus add-ons had been reported, but before confirmation came through last night that the plug had been pulled on talks between the clubs, it was stressed to the Echo that no decision had been made yet by player or the Reds, even though there was a willingness by key figures on Merseyside to recognize and respect the wishes of someone who has proven, pound for pound, to be one of their greatest signings in decades, having joined from Hull City for just £8 million in 2017. That, in fact, was something Robertson himself was keen to highlight when he spoke about his future in November, and more recently after the 4-1 win over Barnsley in the FA Cup. "They've done everything for me in terms of me and my family," he said when asked about the state of play in November after the 3-0 loss to Manchester City. "I think I've not been too bad for them in terms of signing from Hull for £8 million and what I've done." At the time, Robertson revealed he had yet to be approached over new terms and claimed that while he was relaxed, it was a situation that would probably start taking over his life the closer it got towards the end of a deal signed in 2021. Just a few months earlier, in a chat with Reds legend Jamie Carragher at a Football for Change charity lunch, which was attended by the Echo, Robertson outlined his belief that he can still be an important figure for Slot as the next stage of his squad building prepared to begin as champions. "I have only got a year left," Robertson said, "so I hope all you guys, the fans, can help me with making the same noise around a new contract as you did with Mo and Virgil's. Maybe you, Carragher, can stop linking the club with other left-backs as well. No, look, I've had 8 wonderful years so far, and I have a year left. I am not as young as I once was, but I love this club, and I've had some great memories here, so let's see what the future holds. I still believe I can still produce good performances and some really good performances, and I think I have done that this season, so I still think I can produce at the top level, and if I can do that, then that is where I belong, and hopefully I can stay here for many years to come." Robertson might have left in June after contact from Atletico Madrid before the La Liga side opted to sign Matteo Ruggeri from Atalanta. And while the 31-year-old admitted staying on Merseyside would be the preferred option when speaking after the win over Barnsley, that came with a caveat of needing to see what offers were on the table, both from Liverpool and other clubs. He said, "We've had chats now, which will remain private. I've spoken to them, and we'll see what happens. Would I like to stay? Yes, but it's a difficult question to ask. I've got 5 months left, and we need to see the option to stay or if there's options to go and things like that. I'll sit down with my family and decide. After a stressful summer, I'm just trying to enjoy being a part of it and being a Liverpool player. I wanted to qualify for the World Cup, and thankfully we've managed to do that. I need to see what myself and my family want moving forward." His belief that he can continue operating at the elite level is what drove the interest from Tottenham. He wants to play has been the consistent message returned by several at Liverpool when the Echo has made checks in the situation in recent days. Right now, it is Kerkez, 10 years his junior, who has the shirt. But having seen Joe Gomez depart through injury in Saturday's 3-2 defeat at Bournemouth, Slot is down to the bare bones defensively. Losing an influential operator like the popular Robertson for what is a relative pittance jarred with the reality of the situation in Liverpool's defensive department right now. Slot explaining his decision to replace Kerkez with Robertson at halftime at the Vitality over fitness fear for the young Hungarian also chimed with the idea of letting the 2017 capture leave this month without an adequate replacement. That said, the club was mindful of Robertson's own hopes, and it is fair to say that had it not been the legendary left-back in the position he was, Liverpool would not have entertained any talks this month. But after a fascinating few days, it's a delicate situation that has now been resolved.
Arne Slot now has a new hero at Liverpool, and it isn't Hugo Ekitike. Liverpool's unbeaten run was brought to an end by Bournemouth in the dying embers of their Premier League clash on Saturday. The game was fairly end-to-end throughout, with both teams dominating different points of the game. However, in the end, it was Andoni Iraola's men who came out on top. Although the 3-2 defeat may look bad on paper, there were some positive moments from the game, with some members of Arne Slot's starting 11 further cementing their place in his team. Jeremy Frimpong is finally living up to expectations at Liverpool. When it was announced that Connor Bradley was likely to be sidelined until the end of the 2025-26 season, most Liverpool fans thought that would be the end of the Reds' silverware hopes. However, somewhat surprisingly, Jeremy Frimpong seems to have massively stepped up and has started to cement his place in Slot's starting 11. And now that Mohamed Salah is back from AFCON, Frimpong is able to overlap his winger, which allows the Egyptian king to go more central and get into more goal-scoring opportunities. And although for someone such as Trent Alexander-Arnold this would have been a struggle, due to Frimpong's speed, coupled with his never-ending energy, the Dutchman is easily able to bolt up and down the wing for the entire game. Of course, he did prove that he had what it takes to be a top-level wingback when playing for Bayer Leverkusen, but for one reason or another, things just weren't clicking at Anfield. However, now that there's no competition for his place, he seems to be thriving and even becoming a key cog in Liverpool's plans. Jeremy Frimpong must continue performing at this level to cement his place. As mentioned, now that Frimpong is the only fit right back in the squad, he has the best chance possible to cement his place as the Reds' main man. Of course, when Bradley returns, the two will be fighting for that position once again. But if Frimpong can keep fit and continues performing to the level he's shown over the last couple of weeks, he'll be doing himself and Liverpool a massive favor. The right back is clearly very talented, and since he's still just 25 years old, there's plenty of time for him to grow into an even better player than he already is. There's still plenty of the 2025-26 season left to go, and if the Dutchman can play his cards right, he could quickly become a fan favorite and help them forget about the betrayal they received from Alexander-Arnold in the summer.